everyone, Peter Hewitt, la-artistino, back with part 3 of our colour along. As you recall, in the last instalment we coloured this section of the picture. Now a lot of the items that you see in this section are repeated over on this side, so I thought the first thing we will do is go through the colours that we used for these sections so we can repeat them on this side, and then I will speed colour through it until we get to the new sections that we have to start choosing colours for again. To start off with, we'll go for the green single leaves, and if you recall, the colours I used were here we go, the mineral green, which was from the Derwent Artist range, that's kind of a bright darker green, and the leaf green from the Polychromos range, which is a medium green and it is quite bright. So we'll start applying that to these leaves the same way as we did those leaves. If you recall, we gave the leaves a central vein, which they don't actually have in the drawing, but we added it to give the leaf some texture. Then we coloured around the outside of the leaf and then created a gradient of dark colour there going down to light colour around about the middle of the leaf. Then we added the leaf green at the base, and I'll start this on these leaves over here. Before we start, I want to give you a quick word on working on near the fold of the book. As you know, these books are very tightly bound and it's hard to get the pages to lie flat. The binding is quite robust though, so what I find helps is to take it and really push hard to get it to lie as flat as you can. You won't be able to get it to lie perfectly flat, but you can torture it a little bit as such. Give it a bit of a squeeze, taking care not to create a fold, and as you can see, that's a lot flatter now and a bit easier to work on. These books are quite well bound. Some books will not take this rough treatment and you'll find pages falling out, but I find this book can take a bit of pushing around. Okay, let's begin. I think I used a lighter green than this one last time, so I'll just put the leaf green here just at the edge of the shading, and I'll leave these bits white. I'll put the light green here. I think that's what we used last time. There, that's better. Yes, I think that other green was just a little bit too dark. That looks like the original now. Okay, we'll move down the page and continue. might also use these colours to complete this little branch here, using practically the same technique. I'm doing this because they appear to me to be fairly similar to those other big leaves. Tricky to put all the detail in. Don't worry too much about it as long as you've got the basic sort of colours down. There. Now I think we will move on to doing these ivy leaves. Now, oops, juggling around. If you recall, the colours that I used for the ivy leaves were the Faber-Castell Chrome Oxide Green, the Faber-Castell Light Green, and the Faber-Castell Ivory. If you recall, we started with the dark chrome oxide green. We created the spike in the middle, dark in the centre, and then lightening out towards the side so we can blush in the ivory. And then we outlined it with the dark one. We came back with the ivory and we put the ivory all the way through, omitting the central spike, but we blended it all in and left a hard edge lined up against the dark green. Then we took the chrome oxide and once again we put the little seed shapes inside, and lastly we used the light green just to blush in around the outside of this central spike to give it a little bit more life and colour. So I'll go ahead and do that now with these three leaves. I've just noticed I've gone up a little bit too high with these centre spikes, so I'm just going to take a little bit of that out with a rubber. An eraser. See, I said rubber again. Now we're going to work on the rocks. As you recall, we started off by using the Derwent blue-grey pencil, Then we went over with the warm grey number 5 from the Faber-Castell range. And finally, we used the warm grey 2 from the Faber-Castell range. If you recall, the rock that's above the water, we left a margin of white so that it looked like the light was striking it. And below the water, we went right to the edges. We'll start off by using the blue-grey to put in all the shadows. Just a thought, before we go much further, let's do these little heads here, these little floral heads. What I might do is I'll just colour them in with some ivory, and I'm doing that first because if I go over it with the pencil, I might actually put some pencil within the blue pencil within the bobs themselves. If I put the ivory on first, it'll act as a bit of a resist, and it'll be harder for the pencil to get contaminated inside these little heads here. So here's my ivory. I'll just colour the whole thing in with the ivory colour. If you don't have ivory, a light yellow would also look nice here. Okay, now back to the blue-grey, and I think we'll switch up to some speed colouring. Right, I think that's done. As you can see, we've left a little halo, a little of light white here, so that it looks like that the light is striking the top of the rocks. And down on the base of the rocks where it's in shadow is where we've got the darkest. Okay, we'll move up to complete this little section, which I believe represents Earth. And before I do that, I'm not 100% happy with these white little heads here, so I'm going to add a bit of, let's see, dark Naples Ochre. That's this pencil from the Faber-Castell range, just at the base of them to give them a little bit more life. Yep, I like that better. Okay, now for this earth bit here, if you recall, on the other side we use the burnt sienna from the Faber-Castell range, and we use the burnt ochre. So I'll start laying down the burnt sienna first at the base where it'll be darkest, going light up to where the lightest part will be where the burnt ochre is. And we'll blend the two in together in the centre. I'll continue with the same greens we used on these leaves over to these little ones under the water here, and to these. And that was the mineral green on the Derwent range, Derwent Artist range, the leaf green from the Faber-Castell Polychromos range, and the light green also from the Faber-Castell Polychromos range. Piece of paper underneath my hand so that I don't smear the colours underneath. I'm going to leave a little bit more light on this side because I want the feeling of the sun light coming down into the water here and striking these leaves. Next I'm going to work on these large leafy underground plants. I want to bring a bit more of a splash of colour in here to contrast with the green. So I'm going to go for the rose carmine again. As you recall, we used that on the fish on the other side. And I just want it to be a little bit dull because it's down here in the corner, so I don't want it too bright. So I will use a dark Naples ochre, which is sort of like a dark, slightly dullish yellow colour as well. And I might throw in a little bit of cream. I'll just see how I go as we progress through it. We'll start with the big one, and I'll start with the dark Naples ochre. Just give it a bit of a sharpen first. Okay, let's see how this looks. What I'm planning to do is make the stalk the yellow colour and then add the rose carmine pink to the tips. So we'll start off just colouring in the stalk and softly blending it out as I go up into the leaves. Not blending, sorry, softly just graduating it out, gradiating it out. Ugh, can't talk today, can I? Go. Just like that. Making it darker at the stalk and softer as you go out into the body of the leaf. Okay, let's see what happens when I add the rose carmine now. I'm thinking I'll put it around the peripheral, just around the outer edge here, and then shading it in a little bit like that. Feeling I'd like these ends to be a little darker than that, so I might choose a darker colour. See, I've got a Faber-Castell Polychromos Pompeian red. I'll see what that one does. It's a little bit darker. Slightly more reddish tone than the pinkish tone. I think I like it better. I'm going to cover all of my previous work with the rose carmine with this Pompeian red. Yes, I like this better. It's only a very slight change in colour, but it's more reddish than pink. I think I prefer it. There. Okay, well I'll do the other two leaves now. Start off with the Naples yellow with the dark Naples ochre. Now once again for the Pompeian red. You'll notice I still use the rose carmine underneath, and that's because this was layered over the rose carmine. So if I want the same colour, I'm going to have to use the same layers. So I'll pop that over the top. almost done. Now we've got the little bits of grass under here. I'll probably just choose the same colours, similar to the ones that I've used up here for that. And then we've got this little snail. So for the grass, we'll start off with the little piece of cream that I've got here from the Faber-Castell Polychromes range. I'll just drop a little bit in the base. Just a little. And then we'll get out the, let's have a look, my green, earth green yellowish, again from the Polychromes range. And I'll put a little bit more in there, just on top of the cream. Not quite going down all the way, but just blending it in a little bit, same as we did in the grass above. And finally, I think the tips, we will use the permanent green olive, again from the Polychromes range. I find when you've got similar elements in different parts of the pictures, such as the grass up above and then the grass down here, it helps to mend all, sort of like bring all the picture together, sort of mold it all together if all the similar elements are coloured in the same. It gives a kind of harmony to the picture. Okay, now this little snail. Snails are usually a grey colour. Let's see, what have I got? I've got a, this is called earth green, and it's a funny sort of a green-grey, and I'll pop it out for you here. As you can see, it's a grey, but it's got a very greenish tint to it. If you contrast that with a grey-grey, let's have a look. This is a, just a warm grey. Now you can see how green it looks. But if I put a proper green on the other side, I'll take that away. Now it looks sort of greyish. Depends on what it's sitting next to as to what that tint looks like, whether it's more grey or it's more green. But I'm going to use it for the snail along with the grey. So I'll just put a little bit of the this earth green, and the reason I'm using the earth green and not a grey is because it's sitting against the rocks that are already grey. If I make him grey, he's going to look too blended in, too faded into the rocks. You won't be able to see him, he won't stand out. So if I colour him in this, you can still get the idea. It's green coloured because he's in contrast with these very bright green leaves here, but he's more greyish, but he'll still stand out. I hope that made sense. I knew what I was talking about. I think it came out a bit confused. Anyway, as I said, just do his body the earth green from the Polychromes range, and if not, pick a grey and use that, and maybe go with a tiny little bit of a darker green, but a very, very light layer of it, and put a very light grey over the top to get the same effect. Now the shell, I'll make him a traditional sort of brown shelled snail. So let's grab out, what have we got here? This is the brown ochre from the Polychromes range. And I'll put a little bit on the top there where the light's going to strike his shell. And I'll go for a darker brown underneath to look more like it's in shadow. We'll use the burnt sienna, again from the Polychromes range. Just blush that in underneath on the underside of his shell. Okay, now what have we got left of these stalks here? Now if you recall, the stalks to the ivy, we just coloured in using the ivory colour. So I'll get that one out and I'll fill in these stalks here, just above. And this will help to just smudge the colour down and smooth it all out. There. Now the stalks of the plants we did with, I'm going to use the raw umber for them. Okay, that works. Now there's just a little bit right up here in this corner. And these stalks here poking around the sides of that piece of ivy. If we go a little bit lower, down at the base, I've got a little piece just here. Okay, and I think that concludes this part of the picture. And there we have the third section of the picture complete. I hope you've enjoyed this little colour along. This one's been a little bit easier, I think, because we've used elements that we've already used in this side. Next week we'll be colouring the water itself and the fish inside it, and looking at a couple of the elements down here at the base. I hope you will join me. I hope you're enjoying yourself, and whatever colouring adventures you're on, happy colouring!